Hi, welcome back to the show The Deceitful Liberal, hosted by me, Adam Gibbons, radical right-wing author of the book The Deceitful Liberal, Why the Contradicting Left is Never Truthfully Right, or just for short, The Deceitful Liberal. Now, today's episode is going to be on Obama and his changes to No Child Left Behind. First of all, the bill was a complete failure when it was first sent into office in 2002 by George W. Bush, as well as a Republican Congress and a pretty much equal Senate. So this is actually one of the problems that we can't completely blame liberals on. As much as I'm used to blaming them for the world's problems, some Republicans are going to actually have to take the dive on this one today. But the Republicans certainly weren't conservative anyways then. Anyway, so this isn't really a conservative issue. This is a rhino issue, which is Republicans in name only. Now, the bill was failed from the get-go, and Obama wants to take a failed bill and make some changes on it, acting like you can actually fix a bill that has just completely failed and flawed to begin with. His changes are threefold. It has to do with teachers, spending, and standards. First of all, let's talk about teachers. Okay. The states get to pick what's called highly qualified teachers, but the highly qualified is decided by the states as a definition of what it means. Now, Obama now all of a sudden wants to get his little paws into creating what that ends up meaning. I mean, what's a highly qualified teacher? And so what he's saying is, let's scrap that idea. Instead, let's judge teachers now by how much their students improve. So that's one of the changes that he wants to enact in No Child Left Behind. My question to this is, where does the federal government have a right to judge teachers on whether their students improve or not? Okay, last time I checked, the way we should be judging whether our federal government is working or not is by whether they are increasing the national deficit or if they're bringing it down. Now, on those standards, the federal government completely fails miserably. Okay, so here's a government that can't do their job whatsoever. I mean, they're worse at their job than weathermen are at theirs. No offense, weathermen or weather women watching. It's just true. I mean, you guys aren't really that great at your job half the time. Well, you're great though, considering, compared to the federal government. So we have a failed federal government that can't do their job if their life depended on it. Illegal immigration. Okay, the laws are simple. You cannot come into this country as an illegal immigrant. If so, you have to leave, and you shouldn't be getting any benefits either. Federal government can't get that right. And when it comes to a drug dealer coming into this country and getting shot by 2 border patrol agents, they arrest the border patrol agents and put them in federal prison. Okay, and then let the drug dealer go back and allow him to come back as freely as he wants. Okay, that's how miserable our federal government is at doing their job. And by the way, George W. Bush did end up commuting their sentence. It was like the last day, I think, of his presidency. That's how awful our federal government is. Now, I would be insulted, quite frankly, if I was a teacher, to hear that miserable organization that we call our United States federal government is going to judge me on whether I can or can't do my job. Okay, nothing like the blind judging the blind here. Okay, this is absolutely insane. This is unconstitutional as well, by the way. The states have a right to decide these educational choices and decisions, not the federal government. The reason why is, what does Washington, D.C. know about our students in grade school or high school? What do they know? There are men and women who don't have any kind of educational bachelor's degree whatsoever. The great majority of them, at least. The great majority of them have law degrees. Well, what do you do to get a law degree? Well, first you have to have a bachelor's degree in something. But that's completely up to you. Most of them don't have it in teaching. Okay, and then number 2, learning the law doesn't really have anything to do with knowing how the educational system works either. So these people don't know really anything about the educational system, yet they're going to be the first ones to make the choices for the educational system. This makes me really feel really uneasy, especially considering that the federal government doesn't do anything right to begin with. But they're going to get this right, supposedly, for the kids, because we all love and care for the kids as the federal government. Spending. If something's not fixed, you just spend more. That's the liberal way. I mean, we're obviously not putting enough money to it. Never mind that we throw more money into our educational system than any other country does in this world. Never mind that. Okay, we just still are not throwing enough money in. Never mind that China outscores our kids, okay, and they spend less money than us, but they have more kids than we do. Go figure. Never mind that, though. Trust me, the issue is just we're not spending enough money, okay? and that's the problem with liberals, okay? Whenever something isn't right, it means we haven't thrown enough money into it. If welfare's not working, we just haven't thrown enough money into it. If Social Security isn't working, we just haven't thrown enough money into it yet. The educational system isn't working. We just haven't thrown enough money into it. It's all about money, money, money. We're just going to spend our problems away. But that is not the case. First of all, there's no evidence whatsoever to support that when we spend more money, that our kids are getting better grades. There just isn't. Okay? Now, since there's No Child Left Behind, which has massively increased federal government spending, by the way, on education, there has been some test scores that have gone up. Admittedly so. I'll be the first to admit that. However, with the critics, on me, okay, the people that support No Child Left Behind, they're going to be critics towards me. What they will not admit is that there are a lot of scores that have went down as well. I'll admit that some have gone up. They can't admit that some have gone down. And then ultimately there's been some that have stayed the same. In today's, dollar, inflation being put into consideration on this, in 1970, per student, we were spending roughly $4,000 of today's money. $4,000. Now, today, what we end up spending is over $10,000 per student. And in the end, when you consider that some scores have gone up, some have gone down, we've pretty much stayed even. We've more than doubled our spending, yet our students really haven't become any better test takers whatsoever. Reading has stayed the same. 13-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 9-year-olds, it hasn't gone up from 1970 till now in those three categories, yet we've more than doubled our money. It just doesn't make any sense. In the end, it doesn't matter how much you spend, It's not the quantity of money spent, it's the quality, of what we're getting per dollar basis on spending, and it isn't adding up. And the rest of the world seems to get this fine, because the rest of the world doesn't throw their money completely away into the educational system, because they know it has nothing to do with what you spend, it has to do with how you spend it. That's the bottom line. And number 3, standards. Who wants to raise the standards? Which again, it's like the teaching standards. How does the federal government have a constitutional right to do that? And furthermore, has the federal government proved that they're worthy to even go into this endeavor? Let me tell you the problem with our country's educational system. It's really a threefold problem. Number 1, who's in charge of it? The federal government's in charge of it. Now you might say, no, Adam, the No Child Left Behind states that states have a right to make the decision. No, they don't. I know the bill says that, that there's standards on the tests and that states have a right to decide that. But it's all overseen by the federal government. So in the end, the federal government is the one in charge. And the states have to make it acceptable enough to be able to get the federal funds. They have to make the tests hard enough to get the funds, but yet easy enough to where their students will actually pass to get the funds. So it actually encourages schools to not care about what the kids are learning, but how much can we teach the kids, but at the same time not teach them too much so that they're not failing the tests. Let's just try to teach them just the right amount so they can score well on the tests. This isn't helping out the kids. In essence, you're teaching them less just so they can retain what they're learning so they can pass a test so you can get federal funds as a state. So maybe the state's making decisions, but the state's decisions are being made by the pressure of the federal government funds. So in the end, let's call it what it is. The federal government's making the decisions. They're the ones calling the shots. Don't be so blind, that you have blind glasses on to the point where you can't see that.